This is a story called The Little Monsters, Chapter 170, The Naughtiest, Most Cruel Child in the Whole School. It's the beginning of the school week and a new girl called Imelda Spaghetti has just joined Kicker and the gang's class. Mrs. Scott has seen her file and she's told the rest of the staff about her behaviour. That day, Imelda made friends with two girls, and for the first couple of weeks she was on her best behaviour. However, on her third week she started showing her true colours. She said to her friends, "Grab her and get all her money off her." "We can't do that," said Imelda's friend Susie Plum. Imelda grabbed her by her hair and she said, "Do it, or I'll hurt you." Susie was really scared and she knew that she had no choice but to do what Imelda told her to do. They grabbed the girl by her hair and Imelda said to her, "Empty your pockets and give me everything you have." "No, I won't," said the girl called Taylor. Imelda and her two friends, Susie and Judy, pulled Taylor's hair harder, making her cry. Then they went through her pockets and her bag. They took all her money, which was for her school trip and her dinner money. They also took her homework and ripped it up, leaving poor Taylor in tears. And then Imelda said to her, "If you tell anyone about this, I'll hurt your little sister, Harper, and your twin brothers, Harvey and Hunter. Do you understand me?" Then she pulled her hair again, and in between tears she said, Yeah, I understand. Please let go of me, you're hurting me." Imelda let go of her and then she said to her, "It's my birthday tomorrow, so make sure you bring me something nice. I'll be here tomorrow morning waiting for you. Meet me here before registration. Don't be late." The next day, Taylor told her parents that she didn't feel well, so she wouldn't have to go to school. Thankfully, her parents believed her and kept her off. The next day, she went back to school, and when she got there, she saw Imelda, Susie and Judy, and she ran as fast as she could into the school building. Unfortunately, they saw her and managed to catch up with her. They blocked her path so she couldn't escape. Then they pinned her against the wall. Imelda grabbed her hair and said, "Where were you yesterday, Taylor? I was waiting for you. You haven't forgotten it's my birthday today, have you?" "I was sick yesterday," said Taylor. "Well, you're here now. It's my birthday today. What have you got for me?" said Imelda. "I haven't got anything. You took everything I had the other day," said Taylor, crying. "You're lying. I can tell you're lying. Now hand everything over," said Imelda. "I'm not lying. I haven't got anything," cried Taylor. Imelda grabbed Taylor's bag and emptied it all over the floor, and then she went through her pockets and took her dinner money and bus fares. Then she punched her in the stomach and in the face. Then she pulled her to the floor by her hair and kicked her hard in her stomach. And then she said to her, "Meet me here tomorrow. Oh, and remember, if you tell anyone about all this, I'll go after your younger brothers and sister." Poor Taylor was terrified and she left the school premises and went home. When she got there, her mum said to her, "Taylor, what are you doing home when you should be at school?" Taylor broke down in tears and told her mum everything, and she showed her bruises. Then she fell into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Her mum said to her, "Right, we're going down to see the head right now." "No, we can't, Mum," Imelda said. "That if I told she'd come after Harper and the twins," said Taylor. "I don't care what she said. There's no way I'm letting her get away with this, said Taylor's mum. Taylor and her mum went to the school, and when they got there, they went straight to Mrs. Scott's office. When they got there, Taylor's mum barged into Mrs. Scott's office and said, "Have you seen just what that Imelda girl has done to my daughter? Not only has she beaten her black and blue, but she's taken her money off her and she ripped all her homework too." "Right, I'm going to sort this out right now," said Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott got on the tannoy and called for Imelda and her two friends, Susie and Judy, to come to her office. When they got there, Mrs. Scott said to them, "I believe that Taylor's bruises are down to you three. I also believe that you took over £250 off her, which was for her school trip, and you ripped up her homework. Is this true?" "No, it's not true, miss. She's a liar," said Imelda. Then Imelda's mum walked in and said, "What have you done now, Imelda?" "I haven't done anything, Mum. Taylor's a liar," answered Imelda. "Oh, is that right? Let me get this right. You bully an 11-year-old who's 2 years younger than you and more than half your size. You steal off her. You threaten to hurt her 9-year-old sister and her 7-year-old brothers. You beat her up, and now on top of all that you're calling her a liar. There's only one liar in this room, and that's you, Imelda," said Imelda's mum. "Oh, whatever, Mum, she's a brat, and she deserves everything she gets," said Imelda. "Imelda, please empty your bag," asked Mrs. Scott. "No, I won't, miss," answered Imelda. Then her mum grabbed her bag and emptied it on Mrs. Scott's desk. As she did so, Taylor's purse with half her money in fell out, and so did her purse, and she said to Imelda, "You're in big trouble, my girl. I wondered where my purse had gone. I see you spent over £300 on my credit card. I also see that you spent nearly all of Taylor's money too. You're going to pay back every last penny. I see you've ripped Taylor's blazer. You pay for a new one." "I'm not doing that, Mum," said Imelda. "Oh, trust me, my girl, you are," said Imelda's mum. Then Imelda was caned by Mrs. Scott 3 times across her hand, and then she said to her, "You are suspended from school for a week. During that time, you're not to come on the school premises. You're to take this work for that week home with you. When you come back to school, you'll do 2 weeks of after-school detention and 2 weeks of lunchtime detention. As for you two girls, you're both on lunchtime detention and 2 hours of detention after school for 3 weeks, and then you'll also do extra homework." Then Imelda's mum wrote a cheque for £250 to pay for Taylor's school trip and gave it to Mrs. Scott. Then she wrote a cheque for £400 and gave it to Taylor and said, "This is for you, sweetheart. It's the money that Imelda stole, money for a new blazer, and the rest is for you to spend how you want. Imelda, you're grounded for 6 weeks. Now I want you to apologise to Taylor for what you've done to her. Oh, by the way, your pocket money and chore money is now stopped for the foreseeable future, until every penny you stole is paid back. I've taken every penny out of your money boxes and purse. I've also taken the money you stole from your dad's wallet and hid. I wouldn't like to be you when he finds out about all this, my girl. Now please apologise to Taylor for what you did to her." Imelda refused to apologise. All she did was smirk and laugh. However, when her dad found out what she'd done, he hit her with his Imelda didn't care, she just laughed. During her week's suspension, she refused to do any of the schoolwork that she'd been given. She found where her dad had hidden her PlayStation, set it up and played on that. Her dad took it off her again and he turned her TV and took them to work with him. And at night he locked them in a cupboard in his office. When Imelda went back to school, she saw Taylor, grabbed her and said, "You've got it now, brat." Unfortunately for her, Mr. Pease heard her and said, "Imelda, get away from her now. Stay away from her and leave her alone. You know if you do anything to her, her parents will have you arrested." "I don't give a toss, sir. I'm not finished with you yet, brat," said Imelda. "Get to registration now, Imelda," said Mr. Pease. Then he escorted Imelda, who was in his form class, to registration. After that, she stepped up her game and started bullying a couple of Year 7 girls called Eva and Ada. They were terrified of her, and one day the gang saw her picking on them, and they went over and Kicker said, "You like picking on little kids, don't you, Imelda? Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" "But out, Kicker, it's got nothing to do with you," said Imelda. "Look, you might scare these little kids, but you don't scare us. Now do one before we tell Mrs. Scott," said Kicker. Imelda went away because she knew that she was outnumbered. However, the next day Imelda saw little Eva arrive at school. She grabbed her in the girls' cloakroom and she said to her, "I want all your money and that fountain pen I've seen you with." Then her voice said, "Leave my sister alone, Imelda. She's not giving you anything." When she turned round, it was Eva's big sister, Molly. "What are you going to do about it?" asked Imelda. "You just leave my little sister alone." "Why don't you pick on someone your own age and your own size?" said Molly. "What, like you mean?" asked Imelda. Then she grabbed Molly by her hair and they started fighting. Mr. Pease was walking past and he separated the girls and said, "Imelda Spaghetti, I might have known. What's going on now, sir?" "Sir, she was picking on my sister. She's only 11 and Imelda's 14, said Molly. "Right, all of you. Mrs. Scott's office, now, please," said Mr. Pease. Little Eva started crying and she said, "But I didn't do anything wrong, sir." I know you didn't, sweetheart, but Mrs. Scott needs to know what's been going on." They went to Mrs. Scott's office and Mr. Pease said, "I caught Molly and Imelda fighting because apparently Imelda was bullying Eva here." "Is this true, Imelda?" asked Mrs. Scott. "No, it's not, miss," answered Imelda. "Is it true, Eva?" asked Mrs. Scott. "Yes, miss. She was trying to take my money and my fountain pen off me. Molly was sticking up for me and Imelda grabbed her by her hair and they started fighting," answered Eva. "Right, Molly, I know this is totally out of character for you. You and your sister are free to go." "At it again, are we, Imelda? You've only just come back after being suspended for a week. You're still on detention, but you'll now do detention for a further 2 weeks," said Mrs. Scott. Imelda decided that she wasn't going to detention that day, and she went after Molly instead. However, she didn't realise that Molly was boxing mad and she knew how to defend herself. She went over to her and said, "Oh, you, I want a word with you." "Oh, yeah," said Molly. "Yeah," said Imelda. Then she went to hit Molly, but she stopped her and had her on the floor in a second. Then she said to her, "I shot you there, didn't I, Imelda? Because you weren't expecting that, were you? Now leave me and my sister alone." After that, Imelda never did or said anything to Molly or Eva again. However, she hadn't learnt her lesson, as the next day she caught for Bumpy and she said to her, "Oi, Bumpy, have you got any money on you?" "No, I haven't, and I wouldn't tell you if I did," answered Bumpy. Then Imelda pushed her over and pinned her to the ground. Fortunately, Bumpy was stronger than her and she managed to get away from her. The next day, Imelda cooked for a Year 8 boy who had cerebral palsy, and she grabbed him and said, "What's your name, freak?" "My name's Marcus." "Well, aren't you a little freak? Have you got any money on you, freak?" "I'm not a freak, and no, I don't have any money," said Marcus. Imelda then pushed him over, pinned him down, and stole all his money and his pens. He couldn't walk without his walking frame, and Imelda pushed it halfway down the corridor, and he couldn't get to it. Then she walked away laughing, leaving him sobbing on the floor. About an hour later, Mrs. Scott came out of her office and saw the walking frame. Straight away she knew it belonged to Marcus, as he was the only one in school that had one. Then she found him sobbing on the floor and she asked him, "Is Imelda Spaghetti responsible for this?" "Yes, miss. She took my money and my pens and she called me a freak. Then she pushed me over, took my walking frame and left me here," answered Marcus, sobbing. Mrs. Scott made sure that Marcus was okay, and then she took him to his form room and explained to his teacher what had happened. Then she went back to her office and phoned Imelda's parents and explained what had happened. They arrived at the school and hid in her office. Then she went to the assembly hall. Once all the kids were settled down, she said, "Imelda Spaghetti, please come down here." Imelda went down and then Mrs. Scott said to her, "Imelda, I've got you down here because of what you did to Marcus Polo. You pinned him down on the floor and then stole all his money and his pens, and then you took his walking frame away from him. For this, with permission from your parents, I'm going to give you 6 of the best with the cane in front of the whole school." Mrs. Scott did just that, but all Imelda did was laugh. Then her parents walked in and her dad gave her 10 of the best with his belt in front of the whole school. Then Mrs. Scott said to her, "Imelda, you are now suspended from this school for 4 weeks. When you come back, you are to come to my office every morning and report to me. Then I'll escort you to your form room. You will do lunchtime and after-school detention for the rest of the school year." Imelda left the school with her parents. When she returned a month later, her behaviour got a lot worse. She knew that there was an area in the school that was out of bounds, but despite this, she sneaked in. The room was full of exposed fiberglass and she grabbed a handful. Then Bumpy walked past and she grabbed her, pushed her to the floor face down, sat on her and put the fiberglass down her back, causing her to scream in agony. Then she took out her brother's penknife and cut up Bumpy's clothes. Mrs. Scott heard Bumpy screaming in agony and she went to see what was going on. As soon as she saw what Imelda had done, she called an ambulance. Then she called Imelda and Bumpy's parents and the police. Imelda was permanently expelled from the school. She was sent to young offenders for everything she'd done to all the kids she'd hurt. Once she left, everyone felt safe again. In no time at all, Bumpy's wounds healed. A kindness seemed to come over the whole school and everything went back to normal. End of chapter 170. Hope you like it, guys. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to like, share, comment and subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, please feel free to like, share, comment and to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, peeps. Love yous. Bye.